who have paid for the pizza that will appear in the break. Brentwood for giving us the venue. He gives it for free, which is fantastic, so thank you very much to them. Starlight Software for doing our streaming stuff. And JetBrains and Netlify, which I forgot to add the logo for, have given us some prizes. I've literally just found out about the Netlify prizes. I've just redeployed the website to add them. So JetBrains, I'll get onto the prize draws in a minute actually. So, please follow us on social media. We're at LeadsJS on Twitter, and then we stream all of our events, so you can see all previous talks and stuff on youtube.com/LeadsJS. Please join our mailing list. That's the only way we can get in contact with you. I promise I won't spell your details to anyone. I will only send you conference discounts that we get and event-related things. We do have a code of conduct. If you want to get the full version, it's at leadsjs.com/code-of-conduct. I'm going to read out the short version. So, LeadsJS is dedicated to providing harassment-free meetup experiences for everyone, regardless of gender, sexual orientation, disability, physical appearance, body size, age, race, or religion. We do not tolerate harassment of meetup participants in any form. Sexual language and imagery is not appropriate for any meetup venue or online discussion, including talks or the Slack channel. LeadsJS members violating these rules may be sanctioned or expelled from the group at the discretion of the group's organisers. Job pitches. Does anyone have a job they want to pitch? I see some hands at the back.
Yeah,
Stand up.
We've got a front-end developer role available at Youre. We're at the top end of town by Millennium Square. So looking for a front-end developer, probably middleweight to senior, to come and help the team build various websites for charities and sort of public sector corporations like museums and universities. So yeah, come see me afterwards. Sounds like something you'll be interested in.
Do you have a web listing for it anywhere in case
If you go on the newcode.com website, there's a post about it.
Okay, I think I saw Naomi put her hand up.
Hey, I'm Naomi, I work at Sky. We're looking for some JavaScript developers, mid and senior, preferably React. So if anyone wants a job in some Blue Sky TV,
Any others? And Sky Betting and Gaming and Stars Group are looking for developers for all sorts of things. Check out skybetcareers.com or starsinleads.com, and there's like a ton of roles on there. Next up, prize draws. So we have two forms of entry. One is through Twitter. You can use the hashtag #LeadsJS, and you can win a JetBrains license. JetBrains make IDEs and stuff for various languages, so you can get it through that. Or you can enter through our new prize draw system, which you can get by going to leadsjs.com/prize-draw. And you can enter to win a JetBrains license or one of the 3 modern web development on the Jamstack books that Phil just gave me. So hopefully the prize draw system works. I finished working on it on Monday night. I tested by typing things in myself and seeing if that worked. It did. So first up we have Chad Gowler, who's going to be talking about working through the problem, how developers can get involved with research. Chad is a former dev, now a user researcher, firm believer in inclusion, including inclusive software and digital inclusion. And yeah, they're going to be talking about how devs can get stuck in and involved with user research. So thank you very much, Chad.
Oh, excellent. Hello. Gosh, there's a lot of you. There wasn't a lot of you when I came in, and now there's loads of you. Excellent. talk is, it's called Working Through the Problem. So it's basically about how developers can and should get involved in user research, which is what I do. So I'm a child, I'm quotation on Twitter. I use they, them as my pronouns. So I'm working at a company in Sheffield, been doing it for about a year now as a user researcher. But before that, I was a web developer at Sky and kind of various other organisations in Yorkshire. Because for me, I found that actually the problem-solving stuff that interests me about development isn't the technical stuff. For me, it's the people stuff. And actually, a lot of the problems we have, particularly in web development, are people problems rather than technical problems. And that was the stuff I was getting really excited by. So I thought, I'm going to give this dev stuff up. I did a master's at York in human-computer interaction, and now I'm a user researcher in Sheffield. So what is user research? User research is quite kind of, it's one of those things that kind of expanding, I think. So it kind of comes very much out of kind of government and public sector, and is now kind of moving out into the private sector as kind of people leave GDS really and kind of plant their seeds everywhere else. It's not the same as market research. What it is it's a set of research techniques that we've borrowed from the social sciences, so sociology, psychology, anthropology, in order to kind of find out what people want about software. It's used at all points in the product life cycle, so you may have seen it as kind of usability testing. That kind of comes under that user research banner. You sit somebody down in front of your site or service or thing that you've built, and you kind of see if it's good for them. But actually you use it at loads of different points. So you use it kind of as part of requirements gathering. So actually someone goes, here's some ancient system, we need to replace it with a cool new system, go out and find the requirements for that. And that's partly where we kind of do things like interviews. So we do interviewing, we do what's called contextual inquiry or ethnography, where you kind of sit and watch somebody work. So I kind of sit next to somebody while they're trying to get on with their day, and then I ask them annoying questions every 5 minutes. Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Things like the usability testing, so that's your kind of sitting down with people, with users, going through services and things with them, websites with them. I do lots of work around people with access needs, so actually people who use assistive technology like screen readers, screen magnifiers, can they still use our stuff? And that goes all the way through, like I said, from gathering all the requirements and then moving towards building a thing or testing a thing that you have, as developers, have built. So really, it's about user wants versus user need, because it's really tempting to say to somebody, what do you want? Or it's really tempting to say to somebody, we're going to build an amazing thing. Do you want it? Would you buy it? And they're not very good questions to ask. And it's actually really easy. And I found this moving from dev, where you're very solution focused, to user research. And users would say something to me like, oh, this doesn't work for me. And my brain goes, okay, cool, so we'll just put your button there and then it's fixed. But actually you need to find out what the user need is behind that. You need to find out, where does this product fit in to their life? How does it fit with what they do already? If it's something like, if you're building a website for a museum or something like that, you're not kind of going, what's a museum website looking like? You're going, okay, how do people find things to do on the weekend? They're the kind of questions that you're answering, not just, if we've made a website for our museum, would you use it, kind of yes or no. So the thing that I think kind of encapsulates this idea is that kind of user story that I've worked on before, and I'm sure some of you worked on before, that kind of, as a user, I want to log in to a website. Nobody ever wants to log into a website. Nobody has ever said, I really love logging in, it's my favorite thing to do. People need to log in, because what they actually need to do is, I want to log in because I need to pay my bill on my Sky account, or if I log in, it will find things that are near me. If I log in, I can buy this product. If I log in, I can do this. So it's not that as a user I want to log in, it's as a user I want to pay my bill. That's the user story. So getting developers involved with something I'm really interested in, kind of coming from dev, and I did a bit of user research kind of as a developer and kind of sat on a few user testing sessions and that kind of stuff. And we're having a lot of discussions at work at the moment about how we can get the developers more involved and kind of get them all coming along and having a jolly good time. But a lot of the user researchers I work with are lovely people, but none of them have really been developers, none of them are very technical. So I was like, well, you need to sell We need to sell user research, right? It's not just we want developers to come because we need people to carry stuff for us, although that's very useful as well. And so I was thinking, okay, what is it about user research that works for you, will help you build better products and become better developers? And the thing it boils down to is developers are problem solvers. You're not typists, right? I've worked for many a product manager in my time who just thinks you sit down and a glorified typist, right? You just use like Atom instead of Word, right? But you're not typists, you're problem solvers. You want to solve a problem. And very often, you know, again, from my experience, is that you don't often get to solve problems in certain jobs. You kind of get more of a, oh, product just solved the problem for you, or a designer solved the problem for you. Here's like, you know, a Photoshop of the website, type it in. So you don't really get to solve those kind of interesting problems, you're just kind of doing that kind of churning over and over. But to solve a problem properly, you really need context and you need data. So instead of saying, okay, we're going to have, oh, I've designed where you can put, you know, the login button or whatever, what you actually need is like, okay, why do people need to log in? When do they need to log in here? You know, actually, do people need to log in? Can we provide some of this service without logging in? Can we get it from kind of cookies? Can we do, you know, like a, you know how some sites, if you're doing like order tracking, you get a URL, so you don't have to log in. You can just look some stuff straight from your email. And that's the stuff you want to know. You want to know, oh, this user wants to know where their package is. And that's the problem you want to solve. It's not, the problem you want to solve isn't, how do I insert the React component someone's already built for this button and I put it at the top of the page and I'm done. So getting involved in user research really helps you with this because you actually see the problem where it's happening. You see what people want to do. You see somebody, and it can be very frustrating, you kind of watch somebody use your website, use something that you've built, and they're looking, they go, I want to log in, right, okay, and then they're going all over the screen and they don't go anywhere near the login button. And you sit there going like, please, please, just, but you don't understand that until you see it. And you go, okay, actually, yeah, like it is weird because for some reason we've put the login button on the bottom or on the top, you know, we've put it on the left and not on the right and people just can't find it. There was a story I was told at university actually where they were designing a system of some kind of website of some kind and they're like, people couldn't find the button to submit this form, and eventually put the button as a massive red button in the middle of the screen, and 10% of people still couldn't find it because they're not looking in the middle of the screen because you look for the submit button at the bottom. So stuff like that. So you might look at that and go, if someone, the product manager said to you, we need to move the button because they can't find it on the page, you go, well, what are users doing? But actually when you would see them use it, you go, oh, okay, it's because I know they're looking at the bottom, so they don't ever look at the middle of the screen. Don't turn the thing off. Cool. The other reason you want to get into user research is because you're not your users. And you can have, and empathy is this big thing at the minute, and you know, we're all kind of selling it as like, hey, have empathy. But empathy is still not a substitute for talking to people, because as much as you can empathise or imagine yourself in a certain situation or imagine yourself having to do something, it's not the same as saying to somebody, how do you manage doing that? You can go, okay, I know, like if someone's trying to apply for a driving license or something at home and they've got 3 kids and they're running around and they've got to do it like right now, you can kind of empathise that and you can understand that and go, yeah, that must be awful. But it's not until you're sat in somebody's house with their kids annoying you while you're doing the research where you actually really understand, okay, I see why this is a problem, you know, oh, you need all these bits of paper and you haven't prepared, so you don't have them all in front of you, and now you have to go rummaging through your house. And that's something you don't see if you just go, oh, you know, they'll just have all the documents there, then they'll apply for a driving license or whatever it is, and then they're done. And this is really useful when we talk about accessibility. So just because a website is accessible doesn't mean it's usable. So you can build your website in the most beautiful, accessible way. You can pass all of the WCAG guidelines. You can pat yourself on the back. You can be like, yes, we've got this and it's accessible. But actually people still find it difficult to use. So one of the things that we do actually is we go to people's houses, as I was saying, and we watch them kind of use our software with the technology setup that they have. Because lots of people with access needs, they're using multiple bits of software, so they might be using a screen reader and a certain keyboard they've already got set up. And you can't expect them to bring all of that to the lab because they might have a lot of stuff and they've got mobility issues or what have you. So we kind of sit in people's houses, like with them, like we don't like just jump in the middle of the night, like we sit with them and do research with them, with their setup. And then you go, oh, okay, so even though it's past all of the accessibility guidelines, but someone's trying to do this with this screen reader and they can't figure out, we haven't quite labelled that properly, they don't quite understand what that image is. You know, so you actually get to understand whether your stuff actually works if you go and see it working. And that's really, really useful. It makes you think about things you never would have thought about before. Actually seeing people in their real life situation, using your real life product and, you know, kind of really understanding that. And then that helps you to make the product better, rather than someone from product going, they can't find the button. Or, you know, you go, well, the form time's out, oh, well, that's annoying, we'll just like up the session length to like 5 minutes instead of 2 minutes. But then when you watch someone with their kids trying to fill a form out while they're all vying for attention, you go, okay, actually I can see why that's a bother. And really, you should get involved in research because it's going to make you a better developer. So it improves your communication skills, because you have to talk to other human beings, and you have to talk to other human beings who are very much outside of the understanding of software, outside of the software development cycle. So even as I said, a lot of the user researchers I work with aren't technical, but they understand software, they understand the software development process, or most of it, you know. You all kind of live in this bubble where you can kind of, most people who work in tech can use tech. Most people who work in tech can use a phone. Most people in tech can download an app and not think anything about it. But then when you have to go and talk to people, and you have to talk somebody through something that you think is really obvious, but actually having to explain to them, okay, this is how you go and download this, yes, you have to go through this tool, yes, that's okay. That improves the way you communicate. And the same with teaching, really. So I used to do a code club, and it really improved my skills as a developer to go, like, how do you explain what a variable is to a 10-year-old who's never done programming before? That's a really, really hard thing to do, because you just take it as read, right? You go, you know, x equals 2 in your code editor, and you think, well, that's great, but, you know, a 10-year-old goes, what's the equals for? What's x for? Why is it 2? Can I make it cloud? And you're like, well, no, but, you know. So user research improves your communication skills, improves your written skills, because if you're doing things like note-taking, you've basically got to write very fast and what people are saying as they're saying it, presenting back, all that kind of cool fun stuff. It works the other problem-solving bits of your brain. So I think what I found anyway is that you are solving problems. I know earlier said, you know, a lot of web developers are kind of glorified typists, and you're not a glorified typist, you know, you're doing a very difficult job. But you're kind of working over the similar problems all of the time. But doing user research, you actually work with different problems. And like I said, you're working with different people. So you really get to expand that whole problem-solving bit of your brain, and hopefully it all kind of magically mixes together, perhaps. But yeah, it's a completely different problem-solving skill set. You know, what do you do if someone shows up to your interview and they didn't bring their kit with them, so now you have to set them up on your kit? What if they show up and you want them to test this prototype, you can only access the prototype on the VPN? You know, okay, I've got to do that. Someone shows up and actually, you know, their English skills aren't very good. How do you manage that situation? Someone shows up and they're not very technically literate. How do you walk people through, okay, this is a browser, they've never used the address bar before. So kind of understanding those problems, I think, really improves that kind of, that problem-solving bit of your brain, and hopefully that all kind of mixes together in a big bag of psychology. And actually it really helps you understand what happens to software before and after you. And I found kind of working in various organisations, kind of especially agencies, you build a thing and it's gone. And you don't think about it once you've built it. You've built it, it's gone live, it's gone, you're on to the next project. But user research, usability testing will happen way after that project's gone live, and then eventually it comes back to you, you know, kind of 3 months later, they go, actually, we want all these new features, the users want all these changes. But if you get involved in user research, then you kind of go, okay, actually, I do know what's happening, and okay, so I know that in 3 months' time, probably, we're going to have to fix this bug that I'm seeing now, and it helps you start to think about it, and it helps you start to contextualise it. It helps with requirements gathering, because I think that, again, this may vary, but I think it's very easy for organisations to leave developers out of that whole process of requirements gathering, and you just get this user wants to log in, or this user wants to pay their bill, but we've already designed how they're going to pay their bill, or something like that. So actually getting involved with the requirements gathering bit of user research helps you think about, okay, this is a problem I'm actually trying to solve. So you get that really good understanding of the full software development lifecycle. Because one of my biggest culture shocks moving from development into user research was, as a developer, if I ever had any questions what we could do, and I could just go to my business analyst, product owner, whatever, and go, why are we doing this? And they would go, oh, we're doing it for this reason. Whereas user research, I go, why are we doing this? And everyone's like, don't know. That's your job to find out. And that's a very different way of looking at things. You go, okay, nobody actually knows what we're doing. It's our job to find out. And that was a massive culture shock to me from someone who came from kind of more of a background of there's lots of people before you, so everyone kind of knows what's already going on by the time it's been given to you. Yeah. So how can you help out user research? Well, you should if you can, go to research sessions, so there's note taking, tech support, because as I said, like, we'll often do things over VPNs, and a lot of the researchers I've worked with have been quite lucky that I understand how the VPN works, and they don't. And you don't want to panic in front of a participant either. You should always look cool, like you know what you're doing, but then you're like, the website is down, and I've got to look like this was supposed to happen. So having actually someone who is there is really useful. Someone to carry stuff, it's always good to have a mule. I think as well that the benefit we've had with developers before is, so an example might be that we were doing a project where we were replacing an existing system. And the way the system worked was that someone would be out on the street collecting some data, and so it used to be on paper, and then they would send the paper bits up to the office, and someone in the office types the paper thing into the computer thing. And then some bright spark goes, we can replace the paper thing with a mobile thing. And so now they've all got mobile phones instead of the bits of paper. But the mobile phone things still just get emailed to the office and get typed in. And they were like, oh, it's because these services they're not integrated. There's no integration. They've never built any integration. We have to do it this way. They can't just talk to each other. And so we were like, okay, cool. So one of the recommendations we want to make is make the things talk to each other. And actually, I had a developer on the team who went digging for us in all the architectural documents and stuff. I went, oh no, there is an integration. They built it like 3 things ago. So then our recommendation becomes, okay, like, it's not that you need to do some like user training. Is it that people aren't updating the bits of software, so the integration is not in the software they have now, but if they upgrade it, that'd be fine. What's the barrier to that? And that's a whole insight we wouldn't get if we didn't have a developer going, actually, there is an integration. And they weren't lying about there not being an integration, because they were genuinely unaware of it. But it makes that recommendation different, because if we got to developers and went integrate these 2 things, they would go, here's the integration, and then we would look like fools. So being able to kind of input that kind of stuff is really useful as well. Join in with analysis sessions. Again, analysis really does challenge those problem-solving bits of your brain. You have got a table full of notes of lots of different people saying different things, and you have to collate that into like a 1-page document you can give to a stakeholder. How do you do that? That's quite difficult, and that's it's the most mentally draining thing I've ever done. Out of all my years of working in tech, sitting and doing a day of analysis is mentally exhausting, because you kind of have to let your brain put these bits of data together, hopefully, and then get something out that's useful. And so having more eyes on that, like I said, with the whole integration thing, having someone kind of pipe up and go, oh, there is an integration. And go, oh, okay, so now we kind of look at this differently. So joining with analysis for user researchers. If you can't go into research, because going to research does take up a lot of time, especially if you work in kind of organisations. So we travel a lot, so I've been to really exotic places like Brill, and Newcastle, and I've been like in the back of a police car in Essex for work, not anything else. But yeah, so join in with analysis sessions if you can. If you can't do that either, go to playbacks. Researchers really like talking about what we do, because we don't just do it for the fun of it. We do it because we want you to build better software by saying this is what the user needs. And it's very discouraging in some products I've worked in where we don't have developers coming to the playbacks for whatever reason, which is one of the reasons we're kind of talking a lot about how do we get the developers to come and listen to us. Because then, it feels like you're just researching for the sake of it, and that's not the point. We are part of the software development process exactly the same way that you are. And again, it means you don't have surprises, because you can look at it and go, yeah, like you're talking about we're on version 1 and you're researching things for version 3, but it means when version 3 comes along, you'll go, oh yeah, I remember that. You said that we do this because this user wants it this way, or needs it this way. And to be honest, the best way you can help out is just come and say hello. If you have user researchers in your team, or if you have any like UX people in your team and they don't work kind of directly with you on a day-to-day basis, but they're there, go and talk to them. Just go say, hi, what do you do? Hi, are you doing any research? Oh, what's going on? Do you need a hand? Oh, are you going to play that back? When's the playback? And then just kind of get that involved. We want friends. Please be friends with us. So yeah, if you can't do any of that stuff, because time is money and kind of going to meetings and stuff, especially when it's not quite not quite related to what your kind of day job is, it can be a bit of a difficult sell sometimes, but do sell it. But even just come and say hello. Now, I realise that a lot of organisations don't have user researchers. Like I said, it's kind of a very, either you kind of have market research, or it's kind of very government focused, or kind of some of the more kind of public sector type digital agencies are kind of getting into it. So you don't have a researcher, but you should do some research anyway. What do you do? First of all, you should hire a researcher. Because even though I've been saying, devs, come along and get involved, and you should, but research is still a skill set. So it's like, I can do some programming, but you won't want me to program your whole thing, because it's been 2 years since I've written any code and I've forgotten most of it. So research is a skill, and if you want to do research, you should hire a researcher. Often because we will have ethical training. So the stuff I was saying with people with disabilities, or I've been working on a project with people with mental health difficulties, we're kind of trained in how to deal with those situations. The home visits, we need training for that to make sure that we do that in kind of a safe way for the participant and for us. So we have to have ethical training. We're often kind of part of professional bodies, so I'm part of the MRF, the Market Research Society. Kind of, I've got a qualification with them, which means I have a code of conduct with them I have to stick to, and it means there's that whole kind of audit trail. Because you do talk to some vulnerable people, and even if you don't think you're going to, you might be. You know, you might be doing work with children, for example, in which case you do need kind of certain standards and checks and things. And also, as I was saying, surveys we had. I mean, like, we were doing a piece of work, and we had a kind of contracted team helping with the user research, and they were mostly kind of devs and business people, so they didn't really know how to write a survey. And they did go to the client and went, we're going to build this thing that you've got, and we're going to build it in this magical digital way, and it was before the product's been built, right, so they can promise the earth. Like, if we built this magical thing that did everything you wanted, would you buy it? And they went, yeah, we'd buy it. And they're like, look, we're right, this is what we should build. I'm like, that's not, that's not a question. So please hire a researcher if you've got need of one. Slight side note, I am looking for work. So I'm basically on an internship, and that's coming towards the end, so I'm just kind of putting my feelers out. So if you're like, yeah, we should do some user research, we need a user researcher. But if you don't want to hire any user researchers, or me, I'll forgive you. Things you can do anyway. So number one, you should read Just Enough Research. It's a really good book that is basically about this situation. It's about how much research can you do that's just enough to help you, but isn't going to tie up one person's time forever. And that's got some really good examples of really kind of quick wins that you can do. Practice internally, we've just started doing actually because we've got a lot of interns kind of hanging around. We're actually doing a lot of internal research to help with our internal processes. So like, okay, actually, how is the internship going? Well, we'll do some user research about that. Okay, how is this? I just done the Agile Practitioner certification. You know, how did that go? And that's something you can kind of, so you can kind of start doing that. You go, okay, actually, how do you do that? My partner, he's in the room. So she did something where she was building some support tooling for the support team, and so started out by giving them a questionnaire of like, okay, what do you need? And then could build the tooling rather than going, I'm going to pretend I know what support do, and then I'm going to build a tool for them. And then there's analytics. Analytics, maybe testing and Google Analytics, that's still user research. It's still getting what users do. It doesn't tell you the why. So you can go, 90% of our users are dropping off here, and it won't tell you the why, but then you know the thing to go and test. You go, okay, if I'm going to test one thing, I'm going to test this page where like 90% of people are dropping off. It means I don't have to do a massive research study of the whole product. And go to where the people are. You're making an app for bus timetables, stand at a bus stop. You see someone open the bus app and you go, sorry, I work for the bus company, and this is a thing that's very, very difficult to get used to, but you do get used to it. You just go, okay, I'm sorry, just while you look at the bus app, how's it going? Do you use it a lot? And to help you, this is what I call the minimum viable interview. Basically, when you want to know if someone uses something, you just go, can you tell me about the last time you checked your bus? You checked the bus timetable. And you just ask them, why did you need to check your bus timetable? What was the best part of that experience? What was the worst part of that experience? And those 3 questions will get you an amazing amount of insight. And they're fairly easy to ask, and they're fairly easy to analyse, because you kind of analyse them all separately and go, okay, most people are looking at the bus timetable because the electronic thing is down. What's the best bit? They're like the bus timetable. What's the worst bit? You have to log in to look at the bus timetable. So yeah, that's your kind of, that's like the minimum viable interview. And you can just go up to people where your users are and just go up to them and ask them questions, which is terrifying. I have done it. It was terrifying, but the third time it's less terrifying. So just to wrap up, actually, because I realise I'm going over time a little bit. This is my cat Elsa, by the way, so I couldn't think of a more appropriate photograph for this slide. So have a cat. It's not a tech talk without a cat, I don't think. User research is about finding out what users need, not what they want. Users don't know what they want. Or users aren't aware of what's possible, is also the other thing. So that's what user research is about. We want to find out what people need, what problems are they actually having. Developers should get involved for all the reasons I've said. It helps you know what's coming. It helps you understand the actual problem that people are having and why they're having it, rather than going, the customers, this kind of cloud of the customers over there, they don't know what they're doing. Actually seeing people struggle with your software, and it does hurt a little bit because you put your kind of heart and soul into something, then you see someone use it and they can't use it, and you're like, ah. But then you go, actually, I really want to make that better because I've seen you struggle. Do some research anyway. Start off just by doing stuff about your internal processes. Oh, we've just moved to Kanban. Is that working out? I'll do some interviews. No, bit of research, and then go and launch yourself on your users appropriately. Hire a researcher. If you want to hire me as a researcher, you can tweet me, or you can email me at hello@citation.co.uk, or I don't know if we do questions, but you can grab me at any point and ask me questions. Thank you very much.
So yeah, we do questions like in breaks and stuff. We don't do shout out questions.